What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Cocktails in the War Room, episode 190. I am your host, Mistress Carrie, and if you are part of the War Room family, things look a little different. If you have a Mistress Carrie backstage pass, you recognize where we are. Let me explain what's happening. Now, if you are new to Cocktails in the War Room, welcome. This is episode 190 of the show that started back on March 14th of 2020, and we did 80 nights in a row meeting in a room in my house called the War Room, which is where the bar is. When we launched the Mistress Carrie podcast just a little over 2 years ago on June 10th of 2020, Cocktails in the War Room became a weekly show where we get together to talk about concerts, current events, everything that's going on in this crazy world that we've been living in the last couple of years. Now, we've made it 190 episodes. I've taken you out on location. I've taken you on deployment. You've been in North Carolina. You've been in Key West. And this episode 190 is the first time that I have had such terrible technical difficulties with the War Room computer that I was not able to go live from the War Room tonight. That is problem number one. The other reason why I am where I am right now is that, as you well know, I'm also on the radio for Westwood One, and I'm actually covering a shift tonight, which requires me to be in MCHQ. So if you have not gotten your Mistress Carrie backstage pass, we are in MCHQ. This is where we produce the Mistress Carrie podcast, the studio you hear me talking a lot about. Obviously, people with a backstage pass, we have an exclusive live stream every month, and we do it from MCHQ. But because of the technical problems and also because of the radio show tonight that is a little out of the ordinary, tonight things are a little cuckoo crazy around here. First of all, I've been juggling headphones, thus the pigtails. Also, the way that MCHQ is wired, there is the actual main setup, which is where I'm talking to you guys from, which is where I produce the podcast and do all of my interviews. When I interview bands, this is the view they get of me, because this is actually where I record all the episodes of the podcast. But also wired in MCHQ, which is that microphone right there, is the ability for me to do radio shows. And so basically, when I'm live on the air, I'm shifting back and forth between the microphones of the actual main part of the recording studio here and then the actual radio part. So here we go. Cocktails in the War Room, episode 190. And one thing that's going to be a little different, obviously, besides the view and the fact that it took 190 episodes to get you guys into MCHQ, is that Wednesday's not allowed in MCHQ. Wednesday has proven herself to be untrustworthy down here. She, in the past, has either marked her territory by pooping on my rug, or when left unsupervised, you guys will notice the soundproofing on all of the walls. And Wednesday has made a habit of pulling soundproofing off of the walls when she is not getting the amount of attention that she requires. So tonight we will be sans pug cam because Wednesday can be unpredictable and is not trustworthy down here. So that's what's going on. What's up, Shannon? She says nice setup, or he says nice setup. Thank you very much. Let's see. On deployment in MCHQ, says Melissa. Aloha, Jim. Checking in. Where are your glasses? I can put my glasses on if you want, but there's such a glare on the lenses. You guys are just going to see yourselves in the little reflection, which is why I didn't wear them. But everybody with a backstage pass knows that when I'm down here a lot, I got my glasses on. So, so that's what's going on. Kevin says MCHQ is invaded. I know, Andrew, I cannot trust Wednesday down here. The other thing is, tonight is a mocktails in the War Room. I'm actually waiting on my Shirley Temple delivery by my in-house bartender tonight because I am on the air tonight. I can't drink. Actually, you're not supposed to. It's a FCC thing. So, yeah, Walter fixed the technical issues. Exactly, Mark. So, yeah, Shannon was chiming in on the comments, Eric. That's why I said that. Nice Pigtail says, Joe, thank you very much. Elsa wants to know how the garden is. The garden's doing great. Peas are about 4.5 feet tall now, so the peas are coming in really good. I'm a couple days from a fantastic crop of raspberries. The basil is doing well. I've got flowers on my cucumbers, and I have also got very teeny tiny little green beans. A lot of flowers, a lot of stuff going on in the garden, but the only thing I've been able to actually eat out of there so far has been the peas and like 2 raspberries so far. Devin says, Carrie, I lost my dear friend and Army veteran to cancer. Send some thoughts and prayers to his family for me. Absolutely, Devin. Tim says, first time seeing MCHQ. Will we be seeing you bounce back and forth? No. So I have timed out the radio show around Cocktails in the War Room because it's too much to try and swap back and forth. There's just too much going on the radio side. Can't possibly concentrate on that and try to maintain the War Room at the same time. So the deer ate all my pea pods, says Cheryl. I went to Tractor Supply and got deer and rabbit repellent. I have a fence around my garden, but I'm having a problem with my mulberry trees because the deer are getting up on their hind legs and literally like eating the tops of the trees. They don't want the berries, they want the leaves. And so I went to Tractor Supply and got some deer and rabbit repellent. It's basically coyote urine. It smells terrible, but if you make a perimeter around your garden by spraying this stuff or spray it on anything that the deer eat, whether it's your hostas or whatever, it's worked for me. It smells terrible and you want to be upwind of the spray. Made that mistake once. So there you go. Flowers on the cucumber, is that code? No, Mark. You get yellow flowers that turn into the cucumbers, you pervert. Let's see. We got coffee almost ready to be picked. What do you mean coffee? You're picking coffee? Oh, God. I need Hawaiian coffee so bad. Are you on the Pike tonight? No, I was on the Pike this afternoon, but I'm working for Westwood One tonight, which is another reason why I needed to be in MCHQ. So there's a lot going on. And for some reason, I'm having a huge problem with the computer for Cocktails in the War Room. I don't know what's going on with it, but it's running really slow. And normally what I do, to kind of let you guys in a little bit backstage now that I've got you in MCHQ, normally what I do with the War Room is I build the show here in MCHQ. Then I download a file of the finished show with all the graphics and all of that, and I send it into, bartender, we can see you. The official Cocktails in the War Room bartender. Here, I'm turning the camera so that you can sneak me my cocktail. Thank you. Oh, look at this. I was on Double Dare. You'd think I'd be better at this. Thank you. Oh, she brought me. Oh, I got all. Guys, thank my sister Karen for me. She knows I have been. Thank you. She knows I've been having serious technical problems. And I was like, I need a drink, but I'm on the air. So she made me a Shirley Temple du jour. I said, get me it. She goes, what kind of glass? I said, I don't care. She brought it to me in a straw. And guys, she's not kidding, okay? I'm telling you, I have an official bartender here in MCHQ because I'm not in the room with my bar, but she even made me skewers with raspberries and blackberries that go in my drink. And yes, there's a skewer of maraschino cherries in there as well. So, mocktails in the War Room tonight. She also brought me a coaster for MCHQ as well because there's a lot of equipment down here and we don't need liquids down here. Mark says, hey, Carrie, love and miss you on AF. How have you been? Well, Mark, this is where you find out how I've been. Every Tuesday night at 8:30, I go live on Facebook. We do Cocktails in the War Room, but I'm not in the War Room tonight because I'm having technical issues and I'm also on the air with my radio microphone down here. So lots going on, but thank you for hanging out with us. Karen, get the drink, says Mark. Yeah, exactly. Every once in a while, you need a little help. She even got me craft ice. This is fancy shit down here. It's actually nice doing Cocktails in the War Room down here. You guys may notice that it's not echoey. like the war room is. The war room has a pitched ceiling, and obviously it wasn't built to be a studio, so it's very echoey. And you can hear that it's a room that doesn't have soundproofing. Here in MCHQ, it's actually really soundproof, and so it's a lot quieter down here, and sound doesn't bounce off the walls the way it does in the war room, so you may notice that it sounds a little different. Mark says, I follow Carrie all the time. Tracy wants to know how my mom is doing. Tracy, not great. We had our monthly live stream that we do with the Backstage Pass holders on Sunday night. Mom is deteriorating more and more rapidly all the time. It's actually really shocking. I know I've talked about it before, but people keep asking. So I am, just going to kind of remind you guys again. Here in the war room, we've talked our way through over 2 years of a pandemic, and we've been extremely respectful when it comes to how people feel about masks and the lockdown versus the vaccines, all of that stuff. I can only offer you my perspective when it comes to how it's affected me and my family. And I can tell you that if you have someone in the family that has any kind of brain issue, so I'm talking about dementia, early onset Alzheimer's, CTE, chronic depression, bipolar disorder, just anything that has to do with the brain. I can tell you from my family's experience that my mom getting COVID has been a shocking experience that has deteriorated her cognitive ability in a way that I never thought possible. It is so fast and so shocking. And whether it's the caretakers that help the family out with her care, family members, my sister and I, who are our mom's primary caretakers, her friends, our loved ones, no one can believe how quickly she has deteriorated. And so even though she was vaxxed and boosted and really had mild in consideration of like physical issues with COVID, a fever, but that never got bad. She never had lung issues. She was achy and kind of tired for a couple of days, but really got through it physically okay. But the effects that it's had on her mentally, her cognitive ability, has been difficult to deal with and shocking, the decline and how quick. And to be honest, my sister and I are scrambling because we're trying to grapple with, the fact that we thought we had a lot more time to kind of deal with some of the things that are required for us to deal with. And what we're realizing is even though we thought we were prepared, we're not prepared anymore. And we're kind of behind the eight ball and scrambling once again because she's deteriorating faster than we can keep up. So that's kind of the update. And I only share that with you because you heard on the podcast episode with Toby Wright and when we talked about tomes and we talked about brain health. And they said that by 2050, the number one leading cause of death in America will be Alzheimer's. And so I bring it up because this country is not prepared for that many people to need the kind of specific care that Alzheimer's requires. And I share that with you because if it runs in your family, if you really start noticing small personality changes, looking back, there have been personality changes that have been extremely slow with my mom for years, and we didn't know that that's what it was. And so there are tests that they can do, cognitive tests. Obviously, if there's a genetic component, please, try to stay ahead of this. And I know we've talked about it, but just another reminder, I don't care what your age is. I don't care about your marital status. I don't care if you're parents or grandparents. If you don't have your documentation squared away for your family in case of whatever unpredictable emergency there is, please do that, because you need to think about your family members grappling with your illness or loss. And if there's no will, power of attorney, medical proxy, and there's an accident or a sudden illness, if you own property, if there's kids, pets, family heirlooms, large life insurance policies, there's so much to deal with. And my sister and I have been going through this now for the 2.5 years that we've been dealing with COVID, which is when we found out our mom was sick. It's just been a constant scramble, and COVID sped up everything, and it is shocking. So just please keep an eye out, obviously, not only with the elderly when it comes to COVID, because we've been dealing with this for so long, which is why we ended up in the war room in the first place, but also because I've talked to so many professional caretakers, and they've said that people with cognitive illnesses, COVID affects them in a way that no one is prepared for. And the doctors can't tell you if it'll ever get better, if anything will come back. But imagine Mercury in retrograde, a full moon, all of it at the same time. It's just insane, the effect. So once a loved one passes, the power of attorney is now useless. Well, of course, you can't have power of attorney over a person that's gone, but if they're in a coma, if they can't advocate for themselves, if you don't have power of attorney, you have to then go to court and probate court and fight for power of attorney. And if you have multiple siblings, I can tell you this from experience with friends that have gone through it. If you have multiple siblings that live around the country, they're going to fight over the care. They're going to fight over the decisions, and that's why you need to figure out who is in charge to make those decisions. Is it the person that's closest to the parents that's going to be the one most affected by it? Luckily, my sister and I share everything, and we agree on everything and sit down and hash out all of the decisions when it comes to my mom. But I have heard such horror stories with families with multiple siblings that don't get along, that live in other parts of the state, that don't talk. And then all of a sudden, when there's an illness or a life insurance settlement or a death, and there's property or custody or anything like that, it's a disaster. And you can just alleviate all of that for the people in your life by taking the time to get your documents squared away. So what's up, Betty? We're in MCHQ tonight. What's up, Penny? A lot of people checking in. Hello, gorgeous, says Keith. So that's my preaching. I got some hellos. I want to say hi to the Lieutenant Colonel and the Sergeant Major that are watching us while sipping their gin and tonics tonight. So cheers to you guys. No, that's not code. It's mocktails in the war room for me tonight because I'm on the radio, but you guys enjoy your gin and tonics. Dave says, I'm a primary caregiver for my mom and dad and my sister. Dad is a handicap amputee vet in Mass, has lung disease, and my sister was torn in half as a kid by a seatbelt. Oh my God. Not looking for pity, but could you just send a prayer? God is great. And if you could just send a prayer, that would help me dramatically. So if you are a praying person, please send some prayers to Dave. The Eglin family in Ashby, sending you all the love in the world, Dave. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight in the war room. My mom and her sister never got along, and they were fighting over my mom's things. I'm telling you guys, this stuff happens. Such good advice. Power of attorney, a topic you discussed before and so important, says Jim. Yeah, it's just, I can't believe how many friends I have that have kids that don't have their finances and like their plan for what they want to happen to their kids. If heaven forbid something happened to both of them simultaneously, and they're like, the grandparents will work it out. And it's like, listen, if you got sets of grandparents that live in separate states, those grandparents, while they may love you guys at Thanksgiving and the holidays when they get together around the table, are going to fight tooth and nail through lawyers to decide what state that kid gets or those kids get raised in. And they're also going to argue about things like private school or public school and what church the kid should go to or whether they should practice religion at all and whether or not the money from the life insurance should get put in a trust and whether or not the kids have to go to college for it. Like, it can be a disaster, and every single one of us has members of our family that are absolute and total assholes. And the only way that you can be prepared for stuff like this is to think about the worst case scenario now and just get a lawyer to write up the documents. You can even do it online. There's online services that for like $100, you can go in and fill out a bunch of empty blanks and it spits out a document for you. And then you just got to go get it notarized at City Hall or wherever and keep a digital copy and you're fine. Family can be stressful, Jonathan. Exactly. Doug says, MC, or the bomb. Thank you very much. Brito says, well, I feel for you and your family and this time of need. This conversation's bringing me down. I know, Brito, I get it, and I only respond to the questions you guys ask. So if you guys are going to ask about my mom, you know that I'm going to give you updates, and I really appreciate you guys thinking of me and asking about mom, and I'm just trying to be able to impart some wisdom and some advice that I wish we had been a little bit better prepared for. So unfortunately, there is no pug cam tonight. It bums me out that there's no Wednesday the Goth Pug. If you're new to the War Room, usually when we're in the actual War Room, there's a camera set up for the dog, who you can find at Wednesday the Goth Pug on Instagram. But there is no there's no pug cam tonight because Wednesday's a bad girl and she's not allowed in MCHQ. All right, let's talk about some stuff that's going on. So in the news this week, I was lucky enough to be a guest on, hold on. That's the first typo of the show. Social. Anytime there's a mistake on the show, you got to drink. This week, I was lucky enough to be on episode 18 of the Bulldog Uncensored podcast. My friend Josh is a local guitar player and musician here in Massachusetts, and he reached out and said, hey, can I have you on my podcast? I said, absolutely. So the episode came out yesterday. You can find it in my blog at mistresscarrie.com. So I want to thank Josh for having me as a guest on his podcast. It's called Bulldog Uncensored, and you can check it out in my blog. The links are all there. And one of the things that we do if you're new to Cocktails in the War Room is every week, we bust out a cocktail recipe to help you guys utilize possibly some of that alcohol that you have had stockpiled in the house because we were getting really bored during the height of the lockdown. So this is for the sergeant major and the lieutenant colonel who are drinking their gin and tonics tonight. I thought maybe I could make a gin suggestion. You guys know that I am not a gin fan. And so I found this drink. It's called an Aster. And it's 3 ounces of gin. Obviously, this is like a one and done cocktail. If you start pounding back the Asters, you're going to regret your life choices. A dash of fresh orange juice, a dash of fresh lemon juice. Stir the ingredients in a mixing glass and then pour into an old-fashioned glass and serve. And that is called an Aster. So if you were a gin lover, a little bit different of a take on a gin and tonic, ixnay on the tonic, a little lemon juice, a little orange juice, shake it over ice, pour it in an old-fashioned glass, and that is your cocktail recipe this week for Cocktails in the War Room. Yeah. Nope. There it is, by the way. If you want to take a screenshot of it for later. Gin. Brutal. All right, let's talk about the Mistress Carrie podcast. Episode 107 last week featured a longtime friend of mine, Pat Badger from Extreme. I really wanted to have someone on episode 107 that really had long ties to WAAF, and it's hard to find a band that has longer ties to WAAF, especially in my time there, than Pat Badger, because literally the first day of my internship at WAAF, Extreme was there. July 1st, 1991, the WAAF DJs played Extreme in celebrity softball in Hudson, Massachusetts. There was like 3,000 or 4,000 people that were there. I arrived in the rock bus with the street team and all of the other interns, and because I was the only girl, everybody thought I was Liz Wilde. However, I am not Liz Wilde. So I really wanted to have somebody on episode 107 to kind of pay homage to WAAF. And I knew that we would end up talking AAF stuff. And we did a lot of that, including that softball game in this episode. Pat Badger, he's such a Wait, hold on. Joe wants to know if it was shaken. I think it was shaken and then poured on the rocks, but I believe it said shaken because it really wants you to mix the acidic juices in with the gin. Pat's a very busy guy. So not only does he have all of these extreme dates coming up at the Hampton Beach Casino and at Indian Ranch in Webster and at Fenway Park opening up for Aerosmith in September, but he also started, it's crazy how many musicians have these cover band, like these tribute band projects. His singer in Extreme, Gary Cherone, has Slip Kid, who's a fantastic Who tribute band. And Pat Badger, started the Dark Desert Eagles, which are a fantastic Eagles tribute band. And they have another show coming up in July at the Hampton Beach Casino Ballroom. If you haven't seen them, they played this past Saturday at Indian Ranch. And then Pat Badger also is playing bass all summer long for Voyage, which is arguably the greatest Journey tribute band out there. They are fantastic. Joe says Wild, but not Liz. Exactly. Liz Wild, blast from the past, says Matthew. Definitely not Liz Wild, says Brian. That would be a cool episode. You and Liz Wild. Liz actually chimed in on the final day of AAF being on the air, and she talked to Mike Shue and I for a while. I bet there's a great mocktail version somewhere, says Rachel. Well, right now it's mocktails in the War Room. My very fancy Shirley Temple in the margarita glass is delicious. See? She made me skewers with maraschino cherries. Best part, you got to ask for extra cherries when you have a Shirley Temple. Matter of fact, random, while we were in Key West, we were going up to get drinks, and the kids were just like, oh, I'll have a Sprite or I'll have a water or whatever. Some of the other kids at the table were like, we're going to have Shirley Temples. And the kids were like, what's a Shirley Temple? We've never had a Shirley Temple. Obviously rectified that situation real quick. Also, the worst part of it was I had to explain to the kids who Shirley Temple was. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. Let's see. And crushed ice. Tracy, we know crushed ice in cocktails is GOAT. Absolutely. That should do an episode and just talk about the old DJs from AAF. I mean, I've done some of that. Mike Shue's been on the podcast. Kevin Barbary's been on the podcast. LB's been on the podcast. I'm still waiting on Danielle. I got to get Danielle on the podcast. So we've had, totally like access to a lot of those old time guys. Always with extra cherries, says Jacqueline. I always steal my husband's cherry from his drink. He stole yours. Just saying. So anyway, episode 107 of the Mistress Carrie podcast featured Pat Badger, and it was really cool to talk to him about just the influences growing up. I loved hearing him talk about Eddie Van Halen and how inspired he was to join a band back when he saw the Fair Warning tour at the Boston Garden in 1981. The influence of Eddie Van Halen over the writing and recording process of the Van Halen 3 project with Gary Cherone as the lead singer in Van Halen. We talked about a lot of stuff while he was sitting in traffic on Route 1 trying to get to Logan Airport. Pat Badger story, my husband and I went to an alpaca farm in Freedom, Maine that had bought the grandfather of all of her alpacas from her farm. His name is Rockstar and was Pat Badger's alpaca. The new owner took him to a competition and beat Pat with his own alpaca. Yeah, Pat has always kind of been into like farming. He lives up on the North Shore, and he was telling me about the donkeys. He's actually got pictures of his donkeys that are up on his Facebook page, which is pretty hilarious. Stiz, exactly. He's been joining us here in the War Room. Carrie, did you try Mike Shue popsicles? I did not try Mike Shue popsicles, Elsa. Matter of fact, I don't even know what you're talking about. Mark says Neanderthal. I would love to have Paul Marshall on the podcast, actually. He is an incredibly knowledgeable guy when it comes to music. He's incredibly opinionated, but he is so educated and well-versed in rock music that his opinions, with very few exceptions, are usually pretty dead on when it comes to whether or not a band or an album or a song is good. He's really, really smart. Where is Ozone now? He's down in New Orleans. Shirley Temple, a metal band. Exactly. Moxie and Gin. Oh my God, no. I hate Moxie. I don't know how people drink it. It's in the same category for me with Dr. Pepper. It's a no-go zone. And gin, no. Ugh. Ketchup popsicles, no, Penny. We're not doing ketchup popsicles. It's not happening. Eric, just want to say how blessed I am to be around a sweet lady, Mistress Carrie. Hope that you had a great birthday. My birthday's not till October, so I hope you're not talking about my birthday. Was it Captain Bob? Captain Bob. Oh my God, I haven't heard that name in a long time. Let's see. My dad loves Moxie. It stinks. I agree, Mark. It's totally terrible. Michelle, oh my God. Congratulations to new Grammy, Michelle. She says, Grandpa finally got to meet this cute little cutie pie today. She was wide awake for Grandpa. He didn't want to hand her over to my sister-in-law so he could just go for a ride today. Yeah, I mean, new babies, come on. In the family, nobody wants to give up the new babies while they're getting passed around. I love my Dr. Pepper. Oh, Reva, I don't know how you can. It's got to run in the family because Dr. Pepper is just not my thing. Walter, get the mayo sundaes. No. You guys are killing me. I'm going to need to take a sip of my Shirley Temple. All right. So if you haven't listened to episode 107 of the Mistress Carrie podcast featuring Pat Badger from Extreme, it's available everywhere, part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. That brings me to this week's episode. New episodes of the Mistress Carrie podcast come out every Wednesday. And starting tonight at midnight, episode 108 goes live, featuring Ronnie Radke from Falling in Reverse. Now, let me tell you about Ronnie Radke. If you Google him, you're going to hear a lot of stuff and read a lot of stories. He has been a very controversial figure in rock and roll for a while. There's a lot of internet headlines about him, which we talked about in the episode. He has his autobiography and memoir coming out next week called I Can Explain. Falling in Reverse is one of the headliners of the upcoming Rockzilla tour with Papa Roach and Hollywood Undead and Bad Wolves. And we spent a lot of time on this week's episode talking about his friendship with Jacoby Shaddix from Papa Roach, what a positive influence Jacoby has been in his life and career, and also about the process of writing his upcoming book and how he has been misquoted, misrepresented in the press. We also talked about why he loves living in California so much, and we compared West Coast living to East Coast living. And we also talked about coffee. We talked about songwriting. You guys know that I always ask songwriters when I get them on the show the songwriting question about an example of perfect songwriting. His answer to that question, fantastic. We did talk about the Rockzilla tour, which is going to have the first 4 or 5 dates of the tour up and down the East Coast in New England. And so we definitely talked about that as well. So he's a very interesting guy, and I really enjoyed having him on the show. Ronnie Radke is the kind of person that is brutally and blatantly honest. And it can be really refreshing in a world where a lot of people to your face can sugarcoat things, beat around the bush when it comes to things, especially if you're down south where you're like, bless your heart, which really means go fuck yourself. Sometimes it's hard to know if the person you're talking to is telling you the truth. Ronnie is one of those people that you know is telling you the truth. Whether you like his opinion or not, at least you know it's how he really feels. He is that person. So, coming up at midnight tonight, episode 108, Ronnie Radke from Falling in Reverse is my guest on the podcast. Now, celebrating our 2-year, I'm still celebrating the anniversary, guys, because I can't believe it's been 2 years and 108 episodes of the podcast that since we launched. It's just insane. I remember recording the first episode sitting right here with Brent Smith from Shinedown, and now it's 107 episodes later. It's crazy. If you subscribe to the Mistress Carrie podcast, which you can do anywhere, by the way, just look for this logo right here. You're also, on top of the full-length episodes and the bonus episodes, going to get the sit rep. And that comes out every Monday through Friday. You are going to get all of your rock news, music headlines, industry info, entertainment updates, all of it but it's only 5 minutes long and it uploads in the middle of the night. So even if you're up super early in the morning, you can check out the sit rep. It's not a huge commitment of listening. It's 5 minutes long and you can get caught up with everything that's going on and be able to go about your day, but at least know what the headlines are. So, Jim says Jack in the Box has mini tacos. I don't know how we started talking about tacos, but mini tacos, any tacos are delicious. I thought November will be the 2-year, not for the podcast. The first episode of the podcast launched June 10th of 2022, which is crazy. Let's see. When are we getting together again? Penny wants to know. So this kind of goes back to the conversation about mom, right? So part of the reason that I have not been able to schedule a lot of stuff outside of the studio, other than being able to go to some shows and public appearances like I did this past weekend at American Harley Davidson, is that things with mom have not allowed me the opportunity to be able to add things to my schedule. So much of my extra time and my downtime has, number one, been focused on making sure my mom has everything that she needs. And number two, now that my husband is back from his deployment, we have 18 months of deployment time to make up for, including the trip we just got back from Key West. And so until we can iron out some of the scheduling stuff with my mom, that has taken up a lot of the time that I would normally be able to organize some of the charitable endeavors that I'm used to putting together. And also, as the world is opening back up, to be able to put some events together. And so the only thing I can ask of you guys is just for your patience. Obviously, this has just been unprecedented for my sister and I, and also trying to balance everything personally with everything professionally, with multiple radio shows, the podcast, the War Room, all of that stuff. It has not left me a lot of time to be able to, schedule anything else. So, Mark says, I vote that we get together on the tribute page and come up with an idea. You guys are more than welcome to do that. Jim wants to know if I'm still riding. Because my shoulder has been so bad, I have not been getting out on the bike as much, but my shoulder is improving. It's not 100% yet, but it's definitely getting better. So I am hoping to be able to get back out on the bike. Melissa says, bow chicka bow wow, Mr. C. Look, I have a lot of time to make up for with the husband, okay? That's all I'm going to say. Will, the vacation to Key West was absolutely amazing. People with a Mistress Carry Backstage Pass got a lot of travel tips if they're going to go to Key West this weekend when we did our private live stream. So Key West is always a blast. I had so much fun. We all had an absolute blast. So Mark says, come eat tacos at the East Brookfield 4th celebration on July 9th. I would love to. Making plans is always hard. So that's all I can tell you guys right now when it comes to being able to get together. But in the meantime, we are getting a lot of stuff done when it comes to the podcast, and obviously the sit rep coming out every weekday as part of that. Wanted to let you guys know that there are a ton of places you guys can check out the podcast. Obviously, you can listen to every episode at mistresscarry.com. All the episodes are up there. But if you want to subscribe to the podcast so it ends up automatically on your mobile devices, on your computer, wherever you listen or however you listen to podcasts, this is just a sample of the places that you can listen to the podcast. And it's changing all the time. There's new outlets popping up all the time. Once I change the host of the podcast, I'm definitely seeing listening patterns a little bit more differently, including the fact that Singapore is still number 2 in listening to the Mistress Carry podcast this week. Canada had been running the table when it came to being the country that was number 2 in listenership behind the United States. But just in the last couple of weeks, Singapore is now number 2. I don't know why that is, but it's kind of crazy. So I want to say what's up to everyone in Singapore that's enjoying the Mistress Carry podcast. Still holding strong at 130 countries, but in the coming weeks, we are going to be able to pull a little bit more very specific demographic data and be able to get some more interesting stuff. Lisa says family first. Mom comes first. At least we have cocktails in the War Room. Absolutely. Tracy says the fish tacos at Tez McCall in Linfield are the best. Mom and family are first. We'll be here, says Marcy. I know you guys are super supportive, and so I appreciate that. All right, want to remind you guys about all of the shows that are coming up. Judas Priest with Queensryche at the MGM Music Hall at Fenway on October 16th. Those tickets went on sale last Friday, or 2 Fridays. Yeah, this past Friday. Robert Plant and Alison Krauss at the Leaderbank Pavilion September 9th. Foxwoods on September 10th. I Prevail on the True Power Tour at the MGM Music Hall at Fenway on November 19th. And In This Moment, Nothing More, the Cherry Bombs and Sleep Token at the MGM Music Hall at Fenway on September 17th. Now, one thing I did, I am really embarrassed to have to admit this, but I'm going to admit it here in the War Room because, well, this is the kind of stuff we talk about. While you guys are looking at this, if you're looking on a computer, wherever you're watching, open another browser window and go to mistresscarrie.com. Now, one of the benefits of doing the show at MCHQ is that I have multiple screens down here, so I can actually be on the internet and have the War Room going at the same time. Kind of digging this setup, by the way, but I want to get back to my beloved War Room next week. Anyway, if you go to the calendar at mistresscarrie.com. Click the calendar button right in the top of the navigation. I don't know if you guys knew that you could do this or not. The way that I normally look at everything on the website is different. And I realized this week, and I can't believe that I never did this before. If you click on calendar and scroll down to the bottom of the screen, there's a purple box there that says subscribe to calendar. Did you know that was there? Because I didn't realize that I could do what you can do with it because I'm always looking at the back end, pardon the pun, of the website. If you click subscribe to calendar, you can actually put my concert and events calendar on the calendar of your phone, whether it's your Google Calendar, your iCal calendar, into Outlook, Outlook Live, and then all of the concerts will be on the calendar in your phone. And when I add new shows to the concert calendar, they will automatically show up on your phone so that you can go through your calendar and keep track of all of the concert information on your calendar. Did you guys know that you could do that? Some people are saying yes. Some people are saying no. Rachel says, I did. I have it on my iPhone. Tracy says, that's cool. Lisa says, no, I didn't know you could do that. Michael says, Godsmack coming to the MGM at Fenway. How many seats does that have? It is a small venue, and it's a nice size venue because Boston didn't have this size of venue. So when you're talking about sizes of venues in the greater Boston area. So there's places like the Brighton Music Hall that holds a few hundred people, the Paradise, a few hundred people, the Middle East, about 500 to 600 people, depending on how many they cram in the basement. Then you get up to venues like the Opera House, the Orpheum, the House of Blues that hold around 2,400. I think the Orpheum is around 2,800. Then you get up to venues like the Agganis Arena at BU that was like 7,000 or 8,000. Same thing with the Songus. Then you get up to like the DCU Center in Worcester that's like 13,000. The Palladium is a couple thousand. The MGM Music Hall at Fenway is a 5,000 seat theater. There's multiple rooms. There's some really cool like teaser videos that they've put up online. There's a roof deck. There's all these different size venues that can be rented out for private functions on days that there aren't concerts there. There's really cool VIP areas, but the venue holds about 5,000 people, which is a really good size for a show. It's about the size of a lot of the shows that they have when you go to see a Vegas residency of a band. Like I saw Aerosmith do the Deuces Are Wild residency, and I think that held like 3,800 people. And the sight lines are amazing because these theaters are built new. So they're built to sound amazing. The sight lines are good, so it doesn't matter where you sit. Everything looks good. And for it being in the location of behind center field at Fenway is kind of amazing because, there's going to be so many things to be able to do. Parking's going to be expensive. Getting to a show at the MGM the night of a baseball game is going to be a clusterfuck, but it's a really cool venue, and I love the size. So there you go. I might go see Evanescence again in August, says Jonathan. 5,000, says Aileen. Walter, get the calendar. It looks great. So excited to go. Have floor seats. How big is the House of Blues, Penny? I think it's around like 2,200. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's right around there. House of Blues, great place to see a show. Multiple balconies. I like to either get floor tickets or I actually like sitting up in the balcony because you can see the show perfectly. Floor tickets, you have more access to different bars and you get access to the merch booths, but it's general admission on the floor, so you're going to be elbowing it out. Whereas if you sit in the balcony, you get assigned seating. So let's see. I have the calendar for the Mistress Carrie in purple on my calendar. See? So because when I put things up on the website, I'm looking at it through the back end, I never really spend a lot of time going on my website as if I'm not the administrator. So when I realized the calendar thing, I was like, why did I not sign up for my own fucking concert calendar on my phone? Which now I do. What's up, Trina? So excited for Shinedown's Planet Zero release on Friday, says Alicia. I know, it's going to be awesome. So let's get back to the music headlines. Also, speaking of Shinedown, Jelly Roll and John Harvey and Shinedown at the Xfinity Center on September 13th. Weird Al and Emo Phillips at Indian Ranch on August 5th. Alice in Chains, Breaking Benjamin and Bush at the Xfinity Center on October 8th. Ann Wilson at Indian Ranch coming up in just a few weeks on July 23rd. And speaking of Indian Ranch, Aaron Lewis from Stained is going to be doing a solo show with his band, the Stateliners, on September 3rd. Stained is going to be back together at the Mass Mutual Center in Springfield on September 11th. Those tickets on sale right now. Joe Satriani at the Orpheum on November 5th. Five Finger Death Punch, whose album comes out on August 19th. It's called Afterlife, is touring with Megadeth, The Who, and Fire from the Gods. They'll be at the Xfinity Center on September 18th. AWOL Nation is going to be at the House of Blues on October 23rd. Those tickets are on sale right now. Hailstorm, The Pretty Reckless, The Warning, and Lilith Czar will be at the Leader Bank Pavilion on July 19th. ZZ Top at the Leader Bank Pavilion on July 22nd. And did you guys see who's opening up that show? The Joe Perry Project is opening up for ZZ Top at the Leader Bank Pavilion, and Gary Cherone from Extreme is singing for the Joe Perry Project. Yeah. It's also the same day that the ZZ Top album Raw comes out, which is the live album that they recorded back in 2019 with original bass player Dusty Hill. And Billy Gibbons said recently in an interview that the band is actually moving forward, working on new song ideas with Elwood Francis, who was ZZ Top's guitar tech for like 30 years. And the person Dusty Hill personally suggested to take his spot in the band, encouraging and ordering the band to move forward without him. And Elwood Francis is now the bass player. Extreme is going to be in Indian Ranch on September 2nd and at the Hampton Beach Casino Ballroom on September 3rd before they open up for Aerosmith on September 8th at Fenway. The Red Hot Chili Peppers will be at Fenway coming up on September 10th. Flogging Molly and the Interrupters will be at the Leader Bank Pavilion coming up this Friday, July 1st. Rob Zombie, Mudvayne, Powerman 5000, and Static X at the Xfinity Center July 30th, which is the same day as the Hairfest, by the way. So you could do a 1-2 punch because the Hairfest is during the day. The Stadium Tour is at Fenway coming up August 5th and August 6th. That's Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison, Joan Jett. And Tommy Lee's wife finally came out and said how Tommy Lee broke 4 of his ribs. He was in Nashville, and there was a really weird old set of stairs in the house, and they were traveling, and Tommy Lee was carrying all the luggage, and he actually fell down the stair and broke 4 of his ribs. They got into their car, went to the airport. He flew with 4 broken ribs before he knew they were broken, went to Pennsylvania, continued the tour rehearsal, went to the hospital. They told him that the ribs were, in fact, broken. Told him they wanted to admit him into the hospital because he was having trouble breathing. He said, no, we need to finish the tour rehearsals. And that is why Ricky Rocket from Poison has been defending Tommy Lee for the people that are criticizing him for only playing drums a few songs a night. He's got 4 broken ribs. I'm hoping by the time the stadium tour comes to Boston in August that his ribs are better and he's going to be able to play more than just a few songs. But Tommy Kluftos, Ozzy Osbourne's drummer, has been taking over the drumming when Tommy Lee can't play anymore on every show. Collective Soul and Switchfoot are going to be at Indian Ranch on August 6th, and Ghost, Mastodon, and Spirit Box will be at the Dunkin' Donuts Center in Providence, Rhode Island on September 12th. Also, Lamb of God and Killswitch Engage are going to be at the MGM Music Hall at Fenway on September 21st. We were talking about this show earlier. Godsmack, this is a charity show, by the way. Godsmack will be at the MGM Theater at Fenway on Saturday, August 27th. Those tickets, typo, are already on sale. Drink for the typos. The Tattoo the Earth Festival is going to be at the Palladium Outdoors on August 17th. By the way, the Palladium Outdoors holds between 8 and 10,000 people. So talk about a big show. That's going to feature Anthrax, Black Label Society, Hatebreed, At the Gates, Municipal Waste, and Forced. And that's just on the main stage. They added a second stage. You can go back and listen to episode 106 with Scott Alderman, who is the one putting together the Tattoo the Earth tour. He runs down the entire lineup, but it's going to be a huge show and it's going to be outdoors. Evanescence and Korn will be at the Xfinity Center coming up at the end of August on August 26th. And Shinedown releasing Planet Zero finally on Friday. They had to postpone the release because there's a vinyl backlog, and the band wanted all of the versions of the album to be available on the same day. The streaming stuff, the downloadable stuff, the CDs, the vinyl, all of it. So Planet Zero comes out finally on Friday from Shinedown. Also, Imagine Dragons that we were just talking about who are coming, they are releasing Mercury Acts 1 and 2 this Friday as well. So some really, really awesome music coming out and obviously some great tours. Want to remind you guys, I referenced this earlier, the Hair Fest, the 4th annual 100 FM The Pike Hair Fest is coming July 30th to Indian Ranch. These shows, by the way, at Indian Ranch they're during the day. I think the music starts at noon. So Mike Shue, Chuck Perks, and I are going to be there. Last year it was a blast. You got to dig out the old concert shirts, the mullet wigs, the spandex, all of it. And the lineup is awesome. Tickets are already on sale. And then the next day, the Pike presents Tesla at Indian Ranch. So this weekend is going to be nuts. And then Rockfest, sorry, behind the microphone. Rockfest is going to be on September 10th. That is another show that is filled with amazing tribute bands as well. So everybody from Draw the Line is going to be there. Vintage Skinner, the Pat Benatar tribute, Best Shot, Cold as Ice, the Foreigner tribute. It's going to be great. You can get the details on both of these shows on the events calendar at mistresscarrie.com. Mail call this week. No mail call this week. It's been a little nuts, obviously. The multiple radio shows today and also the technical difficulties. No mail call this week, so I apologize. I know it's the shell of a Cocktails in the War Room here in MCHQ, but we're doing the best we can. Want to thank everybody that's been sending me pictures while they've been out, suns out, guns out with the Mistress Carrie tank tops on. I had mine on at American Harley on Saturday in Leominster, so I want to thank everybody that came out. It was 94 degrees. It was ridiculously hot. I can tell you from experience, the tank tops hold up in the hot weather, and everybody that showed up for the open house and the poker run on Saturday at American Harley in Leominster. Thank you for coming and hanging out with me. You can get the tank tops online. They're back in stock, both in black and white, both in men's and women's. And the sizes in women's go from small to XXX. The size in men's go from small to XXX. And they are all available at mistresscarrie.com. You can also get some Mistress Carrie merchandise in person. If you go to Joe's Albums, they have their location in Worcester on Main Street, literally right down the street from the Palladium, and also on Market Street in Northampton as well. If you're celebrating your birthday today, you celebrate it with Mark Stormer from The Killers, and you also share your birthday today with Kelly Pickler. So happy birthday to anyone celebrating their birthday, and happy unbirthday, Keith. If you're new to the War Room, it's an inside joke. We have a lot of them. You got to go to the dictionary at mistresscarrie.com. Go to my blog. It's the very first blog post. It's a lot of the inside jokes. references that we have for the show that we've had since the start a couple years ago. And so we don't want to leave you behind with the lingo. So that's why. All right. If you have a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass on Patreon, we got together on Sunday night. If you have it, it gives you more access to me. We do a live stream that's exclusively for Backstage Pass holders from MCHQ once a month. You also get to submit podcast interview questions because you know who the guests are going to be ahead of time. You get travel blog updates and obviously travel advice to the destinations that I'm going to. I can tell you that I'm going to be making some more trips in the next couple of months. I'll be headed to Wisconsin. And I'm also going to be headed to Chicago for a few days. I got more on that coming up. So I always give you guys updates on where to stay, where to eat, cool places to hang out. And you get that with a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass. You also get exclusive access to concert ticket giveaways. If you have a Backstage Pass right now, you have access to Rob Zombie and Powerman 5000, Static X, and Mudvayne tickets. You also have access to Korn and Evanescence tickets. You also have access to Hailstorm, The Pretty Reckless, and The Warning and Lilith Czar tickets. And there's more tickets on the way. I'm actually doing an inventory like I promised you guys on Sunday night to give you guys a better idea of all of the shows that I have tickets approved for. And so I'll be giving you guys in Patreon an updated list of all of the shows that I have tickets that'll be up for grabs if you guys want to go. So there's a lot of benefits to getting a Mistress Carrie Backstage Pass. And you also sometimes find out before anyone else when shows are going to get announced, when albums are going to get released. So if you don't have a Backstage Pass, you can go to patreon.com/Mistress Carrie, or you can just click the Patreon link at mistresscarrie.com. A reminder where you can find me on social. I'm everywhere. You guys are obviously watching on Facebook, the YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Cameo, Patreon for the Backstage Pass, literally everywhere. So there you go. Also, I saw some people commenting about this earlier. You guys, have you listened to the new Ozzy song? Last Friday, Ozzy's first single from the upcoming new album, Patient Number 9, came out. The title track came out. The video is by McFarlane, who is just an unbelievable animator. Todd McFarlane did a lot of stuff with Korn. He has done so many album covers and also comic books. So Ozzy had him do the video for the title track from Patient Number 9. And the song actually features Jeff Beck. Ozzy said in recent interviews that the lyrics for Patient Number 9, which were co-written with the album's producer Andrew Watt, were actually inspired by his relationship with his wife, Sharon Osbourne. And this weekend, Ozzy and Sharon are celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary, which is just insane. Ozzy also getting ready to move permanently back to the UK. They are outfitting his historic Buckinghamshire home with a lot of the things that he is going to need as he ages because of his diagnosis of Parkinson's. So they actually had to take out permits in the UK because his house is so historical and old to put up handrails and ramps. They also built a recording studio, Sharon said, so that Ozzy can continue to write and record music at home. And one of the things that just came out is that Ozzy is installing bat houses all over the house outside, which is kind of hilarious. So way to go, Ozzy. I think the song is really cool. It's long. It features Jeff Beck. I think it's quintessential Ozzy. And the list of cameo appearances on the upcoming album is really impressive. When it comes to taking over the lion's share of the playing on the album, Chad Smith is playing a lot of the drums on the album from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters recorded some stuff for the record before he died. Robert Trujillo from Metallica is doing a lot of the bass playing on the album, but not all of it. Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses is doing a lot of the bass playing as well. Now, when it comes to guitar players on the record, obviously Jeff Beck, he's featured on the first single, Patient Number 9, but Eric Clapton's on there, Tony Iommi is on there, Zakk Wylde is on there, Mike McCready from Pearl Jam is on there. It really is a who's who of musicians that are on this record. He put bats in cages. He put bat cages in the house. Talk about irony. Well, they're on the house, Mark. They're bat houses, not cages. So they're like bird houses, but the bats come up from underneath. And obviously, if you're trying to have pet control or any of that stuff, there were a lot of bats that were used when I was overseas in Iraq. They had these giant cone-shaped bat houses that looked like massive pine cones, and they bring the bats in to control bug populations. And so Ozzy is installing these bat houses on the property and on the house, which I can only assume is to help control insects. There must be water, standing water, pond water, marshland, something around his historic house. And so they're installing bat houses. But bat houses you can put up at your house. They look like a birdhouse, except rather than going in through a hole in the front with a little perch, the bats go up from underneath. And you can put them up in your trees. They're actually really cool. And if you're trying to find an environmentally friendly way to control like mosquitoes around your yard, especially at twilight, put bat houses up in the yard. Does that make him Batman, says Joe. I want more bats around my apartment, says Trina. Sure, it wasn't owned by Bruce Wayne. I don't know who owned the Buckinghamshire estate that Ozzy owns now before. I think it's a house he's owned for a long time. Pardon me while I eat the fruit that's in my mocktail. But I'm really excited about the Ozzy record because I thought Ordinary Man that came out in 2020, right before AAF went off the air, I thought it was really cool. His collaborations with out-of-the-box artists like Post Malone and Elton John were definitely unexpected, but I think it's really cool. Ozzy doesn't have anything to prove to anybody. He has solidified himself as a groundbreaking pioneer in rock and metal with Black Sabbath and a legendary frontman, not only with Black Sabbath, but also as a solo artist. And so Ozzy, as he moves on in his career, if he wants to start collaborating with artists, he was in the video for the song The Funeral with Youngblood recently. I think it's cool, and I think it's really good for rock and roll that Ozzy is kind of out there and he's this in-demand artist that people want to work with. And I think it also shows a level of respect that artists from other genres want to work with Ozzy Osbourne. I think that's really cool too. Your sister is a big saver when you need her. Yeah, Sean, she totally is because she got very fancy. That's not a raspberry from the garden, by the way. One random Ozzy note. You will notice an Ozzy reference in this week's podcast episode with Ronnie Radke from Falling in Reverse. I asked him a question that I asked Geezer Butler on episode 101, and Ozzy was the answer to the question with one of them. So I'm just going to tease that, but the episode goes live at midnight tonight featuring Ronnie Radke from Falling in Reverse. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Can you guys see Muppet Mistress back there? Hold on. See her back there? Sorry. I told you, I'm never going to get used to the backwards thing. Muppet Mistress is back there. There's a couch back there in MCHQ, and Muppet Mistress is always sitting there judging me. So I've actually had Zoom meetings with people and been doing interviews with podcast guests, and they're like, is that a Muppet of you behind you? And I'm like, yes, it is. Muppet Mistress in the house. All right, guys. Mocktail, are you sober on the wagon? No, Rob, I'm on the air tonight on the network, and I can't drink and be on the radio. Evil Rob. No, I'm not on the wagon. I'm still on the air, and I am not going to stream live video and consume alcoholic beverages while I am on the people's airwaves, because I'm not going to get in trouble. If you're going to drink and be on the air, you don't stream HD video while you're doing it. Been in radio long enough to learn. You need an old AAF beanbag in there. Ooh, no. The love sacks from the studio, those are long gone and burned, I hope. Have a great night, Trina. Tracy, good night. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Episode 190 of Cocktails in the War Room tonight from MCHQ. Hopefully next week I'll have all of the computer problems with the War Room computer fixed, and I will join you guys back live from the War Room with a real cocktail in my hand next Tuesday night. So, all right, guys, good night. I'll see you guys next week.